prairies, wheat kings of all treasures buried. And all you hear are the rusted breezes pushing around the weather vane Jesus. Hippolyta sees the killer's fate. Maybe it's someone standing in a killer's place. 20 years for nothing, well, that's nothing new. Besides, no one's interested in something you didn't do. We kings and pretty things.
We're all feeling just a little bit better this morning, right? Liz sent me an email yesterday. I love getting your emails. Mike at 570news.com. I love getting your tweets. Do we still... Are they X's? Are they tweets? Are they tweets? I don't know. But if you tag me on the social media platform at Farwell_WR, always love to hear from you. We've got a Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show, and on Instagram at Farwell_WR as well. I'm in as many places as I can possibly handle at this age and stage of my life, okay? And of course, always here to take your phone calls the minute we begin the show every day. Phone lines are open. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Liz's email last night asked if we could start the show today with the national anthem. I don't know if Liz has some American friends listening that wanted to boo our anthem, but I think I understood the sentiment because we are rallying around our country, right? We are united as Canadians in the face of those tariff threats from the United States. My apologies, Liz, but the national anthem for me feels like something that should be reserved for a larger occasion than the beginning of the show. But in keeping with what I believe your sentiment was, rallying around the flag, I picked what I believe to be the quintessential Canadian song to start the show today, Wheat Kings by the Tragically Hip. I'm not sure. I mean, that loon call at the beginning, it's tough to get more Canadian, more quintessentially Canadian than that. And so we start the show today with the Hip and Wheat Kings, inspired by Liz's email last night to Mike at 570news.com. And as I said, we're all feeling better now, right? I can just hear in my mind how this conversation went between Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and U.S. President Donald Trump yesterday. Donald, it's Justin here. What we're going to do is this. We're going to do what we said we would do around the border, okay? And then you can just, lift the tariffs. Well, what do you mean, Justin? What are you doing at the border? Well, you see, we made this $1 billion pledge to beef up the border like a month, 6 weeks ago. You remember that? Oh, you missed that because you don't read a whole lot and you were too busy. I don't know what. But who did get played in this one anyway? It's just, there is another $200 million or so. I'll grant you that. And some fancy titles and some task forces that will be struck. Because, if there's one way to cut down on drug cartels, it's to strike a task force. That'll just strike fear right into the heart of a drug cartel. But anyway, it turns out to be a lot of noise, at least for now. But I'm sure this will rear its head again in the not too distant future.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
All right, let's get to that Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. Number 1, nominations now open for Waterloo's 2025 Senior of the Year Award. Residents are encouraged to take a few moments to share a story about a special resident over the age of 65 who has made a significant contribution to the community as a volunteer. Online nomination forms and details are available at waterloo.ca/civic-awards. Number 2, Kitchener native Sam Muibrek won the Ontario Provincial Curling Championship last weekend in Cobourg, defeating defending Ontario champs Team Howard. Team Muibrek will now represent Ontario at the Brier in Kelowna in March. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Waterloo Region will receive more than $71 million federal dollars over the next 10 years to help upgrade and modernize transit infrastructure. That announcement made yesterday at the Grand River Transit Maintenance Facility on Northfield Drive. The feds also announced more than $5 million in support to get the Frederick Street Women's Shelter reopened in Kitchener. Number 4, the region of Waterloo's municipal speed camera program has expanded with 2 new cameras coming online this month. One went live yesterday on Bluevale Street North in Waterloo between St. Agnes Elementary School and Bluevale Collegiate High School. A second new camera will be activated next Monday at Elgin Street Public School in Cambridge, and an additional 14 speed cameras are expected to be activated in the months ahead. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, it is a tariff reprieve as U.S. President Donald Trump presses pause on the threatened taxes. The move comes after a couple of phone calls yesterday with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, along with a promise to add $200 million to our $1 billion plan to beef up the border. The potential tariffs have been paused for at least a month. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. What a difference a day makes. Are you feeling better? Are you feeling better that the tariffs will not be imposed upon us, at least for now? Are you feeling better that we're taking action at the border? Your thoughts always welcome as we begin the Mike Farwell Show today. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. There is a small part of me that actually pictures Donald Trump in the Oval Office of the White House, leaning back in his chair, hands clasped across his chest, laughing maniacally at the havoc he wrought around, well, I won't say around the world completely, but certainly in North America yesterday. He is the marionette and we are merely the puppets. However, it turns out it may have just been a bluff. And we called that bluff. So here we are today, not yet facing 25% tariffs from the United States. And of course, then not applying counter tariffs on those American goods. For now, it's a 30-day pause at this point. How are you feeling about that? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. There are a number of things at play here from where I'm sitting, not the least of which is Donald Trump flexing his considerable economic muscle in all of this, right? He is the elected leader of the world's largest economy, one of the world's largest economies, and the most powerful nation on earth. And he is using every bit of his economic leverage to his advantage. Not to be forgotten in all of this, though, is how stock markets tanked yesterday. They were pretty shaky on the heels of these tariffs that were to be imposed. First, Mexico gets its reprieve, then Canada gets its reprieve. But in both instances, as you heard during All News Mornings today with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas, in both instances, the Mexican president and our prime minister essentially just reaffirmed the commitments that were made to beef up border security. I would like to know, by the way, if we're going to talk about the borders and making them more secure, do you think Justin Trudeau asked yesterday about the guns? Do you think that even came up? Or were we just in a hurry to protect ourselves against those tariffs? But there's an argument to be made there. And certainly in response to anything that we are doing to improve border security, I would ask in return, hey, how about that flow of illegal guns that seems to make its way from the U.S. border or across the U.S. border into Canada? I would love to know a little bit more about that. But I find myself thinking back this morning on something we talked about a couple of months ago when these tariffs were first threatened. And I shared with you, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but it came from, of all places, and I certainly didn't expect to find it from this source, but the Toronto Star, that pointed out the deficiencies in Canada's border and why Donald Trump then, I'm not even sure, he was the president-elect by that point, but anyway, why Donald Trump was pointing specifically at fentanyl, not drugs generally at the border, but specifically at fentanyl. And the reality is, while not even a drip in the bucket compared to Mexico, the reality is, as reported by the Toronto Star, the amount of drugs going south across the border or being seized near the Canadian-U.S. border on the U.S. side had gone up. Sorry, the amount of fentanyl had gone up. The number of illegal immigrants discovered in that geographic area had also increased. So despite the fact the numbers here pale in comparison to Mexico, Donald Trump did have a point. And I mentioned that to you having read it in the Toronto Star months ago, and now here we are. And isn't it odd that it takes the threat of the economic impact of tariffs to make us do something that perhaps, why now? Why only when Donald Trump says you should get this done? The numbers showed that the amount of fentanyl going south from our border and the number of illegal immigrants going south from our border were increasing. It took Donald Trump to tell us that. I find that very curious in all of this. Mike is on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Okay. Just making a comment about what Mike's talking about, the border situation.
Yes.
This delay of 30 days is only 30 days that Donald Trump is going to bring up something new for us to pay.
So it's like playing whack-a-mole, you think?
Well, I don't think there was anything that the United States brought forward to watching the border. The border is ours and the border is theirs. They do not put any money into it. It's all our money. He's got 30 days. He'll think of something else, and then we'll be panicking and doing this all over again.
All right, Mike, appreciate the phone call on that. And there is, I think, an element of truth or reality to what Mike says, because we are dealing with somebody who seems to go on one whim to the next whim. So in the next 30 days, will there be something else that comes up that makes the implementation of tariffs a necessity, or will it be something else entirely? Mike certainly thinks that's the direction we're headed. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Few minutes away from 9:30, our update in the 570 News Center. Phone lines open. Let's get back to them. Paul, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks.
You walk everything off yesterday?
I did the best I could.
Yeah. Listen, amongst other things specifically listed in the Canadian retaliatory tariffs against the U.S., firearms, ammunition, the direct attack again on, sportsmen here in Canada. It's not a huge market, but they did have to put that in there to make sure that everybody was aware that they were still attacking legal firearms owners. Hey, isn't the first Tuesday of the month a day that you have a certain person on?
Thanks for the reminder. I need to write things down so I don't forget. Yes, it is. But today, because of vacation schedules, we had to bump it to next week. So Ask the Chief will not happen today from 11 till noon. It will happen next Tuesday from 11 till noon.
Okay, I just, I was wondering, I was trying to think of what I would call in about, but like I said, you started mentioning why the U.S. Isn't securing their borders against illegal exports of firearms into Canada. There's a lot more firearms coming up from the States illegally than there is fentanyl going down to the States.
Exactly. 'Tis my point, my friend. 'Tis my point. Let's have a little tit for tat here. And my apologies for not remembering to do that right away today. First Tuesday of the month from 11 until noon, we have our police leaders in studio with us to answer your questions. We've been doing it for years, but just with the way schedules worked out this week, we bumped them until next week. So next Tuesday from 11 until noon, we'll have Ask the Chief with Police Chief Mark Crowell and Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths to take your calls, answer your questions about policing in our community. You heard Paul ask if I walked it all off. I know because he commented on it that he saw the photos on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. I know when Christmas is approaching, there's always a conversation around when it's too soon to put up one's Christmas lights. And a lot of times we say, well, not till after Remembrance Day. Let's have some reverence for Remembrance Day, and then we can light up our houses and our neighborhoods with Christmas lights. Well, on the other end of the holiday, if you keep them up after Groundhog Day, are you breaking any sort of arbitrary rule? I hope not, because while out walking last night, there were many places that still had their Christmas lights up. And I'll tell you what, for a February the 3rd, which was yesterday, it made the walk that much more enjoyable in the evening. Something's got to brighten up these winter nights. You can see the pictures for yourself on our Facebook page. Let's get you to the 570 News Center for that update. And then a 3-part documentary by the Wilmot Civic Action Network looking at the land assembly. We'll learn more about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We are into a provincial election campaign. And just a reminder, in about 90 minutes' time, we'll have a guest in studio to talk about the digital strategies that campaigns will employ to get your attention. And these strategies and these digital campaigns are growing in scope and cost. We'll talk about that just after 11 this morning. But with a provincial election campaign underway, Wilmot Township again becomes the center of some attention. NDP leader Mart Stiles was in the township last week. Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie, while paying a visit to our community yesterday, said she would press restart on the land assembly in Wilmot Township. And the Wilmot Civic Action Network has released a 3-part documentary, or has created a 3-part documentary with the first 2 parts already released. Episode 2 just coming out. Stephen Palmatier is a member of Wilmot CAN, that Civic Action Network, and joins us this morning. Stephen, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
It's an absolute pleasure. And along with Stephen, John Jordan, another member of Wilmot CAN, joins us. John, it's good to have you as well. Good morning.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be here.
Stephen, if I could start with you, could you give us a little more background on Wilmot CAN, what you're all about?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of background. We're relatively new. We formed a little while ago, a couple weeks, 3, 4, whatever it is, weeks ago. We're talking relatively new group. And the farmers came to me and said, Steve, you're rude and impolite. Unlike us, we're very courteous and demure. And you can say things that we can't say. And you'll say things that we won't say. And what about starting this new group Your buddy John over here is working on a documentary. How about the two of you start this group and let people in the community get engaged in their local community, the decisions and the events that are going on right here in the region of Waterloo.
John, who's more polite, you or Steve?
Well, it's at the flip of a coin. It just depends on the date, Mike.
Can you tell us a little more, John, about the documentary? Where did the idea come from? Why did you want to do this?
Well, the idea spurred from one, I think it was an evening in our family room. My wife was scrolling through some social media and was looking at some of the posts from Tom Berry, who is the videographer and producer of the series, who is a good friend of our kids. So we've known Tom for a while, and Kathy said, we need Tom to make a documentary about the land grab. And that's where it spurred. And we just went from there and got it put together. And if you've had a look at it, it's a really, really professionally done series to this point, and it will be continued to do so, and gets across of what's happening here in Wilmot with the land grab and what the ramifications are going to be going forward.
It is beautifully shot. It looks terrific. So kudos to the production team involved, because there definitely is a high production value. What are you hoping, John, comes of this documentary? 2 parts out already. I know there's a third still to come. But what are you hoping to come from this?
Well, it's the awareness of what's going on, and we're really getting good traction on this. The first video we've had that we know of pushing about 11,000 views. We just released the second video on Friday, and we're now over 15,000 views on the various forms of social media. So we're getting really good traction on that, and it's to show people what is happening here. And we have to remember that, given the events of the last few days with our friends south of the border, we have to think more and more about our sovereignty and our food sovereignty. Where is our food coming from? Because all of a sudden, if, like, a lot of our food comes from California and there's going to be tariffs or whatever coming through this way, we have to consider that, and we have to start getting more up to the plate. And we cannot be paving over Class 1 prime farmland, which is our food source.
Hear, hear.
Steve, I noticed in watching that you do have a number of farmers' voices represented. The Fennings are on there, Snyders are on there, among others. Are you adding any color to what they're saying? Like you mentioned earlier, you're the impolite one and the more in-your-face one. But it seems like their message is getting across. How are you working with those farmers to bring that message forward?
Well, for example, we're there to help them. Anytime they ask for help, they want us to be there to help set up for a candidate, for example. An NDP candidate comes through and wants to bring some photographers or something. We're there to help out. We're there to set up. We're also there to hold meetings. We're going to be holding a meeting on February 13th at the Zion United Church in New Hamburg, where people can come by and we can get them started, give them a pen, give them a paper, and get them started writing letters to their counselors, give some phone numbers, and get them started calling their counselors. Because, many of us, I think the last civic class I went to was like grade 10 at Waterloo Oxford, and we're not taught to get engaged. Your show helps teach people how to get engaged, and we're here to take that next step in civic engagement, get people actually picking up the phone, putting a pen to paper, and talking to their elected representatives.
You mentioned when candidates come through, Steve, and I mentioned at the outset of this that Marit Stiles was there last week when Bonnie Crombie was in the region, albeit not in Wilmot yesterday, but when she was in the region and was asked about the land assembly, she suggested that maybe it needs to have a restart pressed on all of it. Do you think that this documentary can help move the needle in this provincial election campaign?
Yeah, I think so. I think John should be very proud of this documentary. It's, as you mentioned, high production values. It's really a beautiful piece that speaks to the problem at hand and what we can do about it and the concerns. And, presumably that's the only way our elected official, Mike Harris Jr., will ever see anyone to speak about these issues, because he doesn't hang out in Wilmot a lot. He doesn't hang out in the region of Waterloo a lot. He's kind of an absentee landlord. So we got to make movies or put stuff on social media if we expect him to see it.
Last time I saw Mike Harris Jr. was in North Bay, actually, when I was up there over the holidays with the Kitchener Rangers. But that's I guess, a sidebar to this story. John, what about you?
No, I think that's relevant, Mike. I think that's absolutely relevant. He spends a lot of time in North Bay, and so if we've got to make documentaries to reach him in North Bay, then that's what we're going to do.
I'll just make sure the link gets sent to his office, I suppose.
Yeah, sure thing.
John, what about you and your hopes for actually moving the needle with this documentary during this election?
Well, we've certainly moved it with the opposition parties. There's no doubt about that. Mike Schreiner, Bonnie Crombie, and Bart Stiles are all on board with Fight for Farmland and Wilmot Can. That's number one. They see this as a huge, huge issue. We are now, as you know, the voting population out in rural Ontario is very blue and very conservative. But if you read Terry Pender's article from last Thursday or Friday, where he interviewed Stuart Snyder, who's voted for 40 years conservative, he's now not going to be voting conservative, because why would you vote for someone who's going to take your life and your livelihood and your business away from you? And if it's happening here in the most protected land in the country, because of what Waterloo Region has done in setting up the countryside line and everything, it's going to happen everywhere. And believe me, all the farming publications in the farming community know about this issue in Wilmot.
Yeah, I thought Stuart's comments in this, I think it was the second episode, were very poignant when he talked about having his livelihood and his property taken away and wondering what crime it was he had committed that this can be done to him. Very significant moment for sure. Absolutely, and Stuart's sure got he's getting the Oscar for the first documentary. I think that it was at the end of the first documentary where he said that, but in the second documentary he says it's like a gun. We've got a gun held to our head, and there's nothing we can do. So, just before I let you go, John, on this, having seen the first two episodes, and I know a third one is still to come, but this is clearly shot through the lens of the farming community and those whose properties are trying to be bought, perhaps with expropriation to come at some point down the road. But will the economic argument for this land assembly be featured in part 3 at all? Or are we only looking at this through the eyes of the farmer?
No, the third part is going to pertain more to infrastructure and for the water. So it somewhat gets to the monetary part of it, in that where's the money going to come from to do all this stuff, and why is it this location that they've chosen? Like, this location, out of the province's checklist of 44 items, only checks 7 boxes. Why did they choose that? Yes, it's certainly on the eyes of the farmer, because why should anyone be forced off of their land if they don't want to go? Yeah, it's one of the big questions in all of this for sure. And I appreciate the work that you've done. Again, great work. That it really does look beautiful, the documentary, and we'll look forward to part 3. Thank you both for joining the show this morning.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for having us. Thanks, Mike.
John Jordan and Stephen Palmatier, members of the Wilmot Civic Action Network, Wilmot CAN, WilmotCan.com, if you want more information about what the Civic Action Network is all about. You want to see that documentary for yourself. Yes, it tells the story through the eyes of the farmers, which, from where I'm sitting, really has been the dominant story in all of this. And I get it with that last point that John made. Just imagine being in that position where you've lived on this land, sometimes for generations. You've been working this land right up until the beginning of this harvest season. And then all of a sudden, you don't know what's happening next year because you were offered an insignificant amount of money initially for that land. And if you didn't take it, there would be the threat of expropriation attached at the end of it. Very difficult position to be in. We'll take a break, come back with your thoughts on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Mike Schreiner, Bonnie Crombie, and Bart Stiles are all on board with Fight for Farmland and Wilmot Can. That's number one. They see this as a huge, huge issue. As you know, the voting population out in rural Ontario is very blue and very conservative. Why would you vote for someone who's going to take your life and your livelihood and your business away from you? And if it's happening here in the most protected land in the country, because of what Waterloo Region has done in setting up the countryside line and everything, it's going to happen everywhere. And believe me, all the farming publications and the farming community know about this issue in Wilmot.
John Jordan is one of the core members of the Wilmot Civic Action Network. He, along with his colleague from Wilmot Can, Civic Action Network, Wilmot Can, Stephen Palmatier, joined the show this morning to talk about the release of episode 2 in their 3-part mini documentary on the Wilmot Land Assembly. It is told exclusively through the eyes of the farmers and the people whose lands and livelihoods are being affected in all of this. We know there is an economic/business case for this land assembly, but many questions have been asked since the outset. Why this land? And if the community is not a willing host, why does the province seem hell-bent on putting together this industrial megasite in Wilmot Township? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Chris, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Is there still a secret non-disclosure issue there with Regional Council?
Yes, I do believe they are still bound by a non-disclosure agreement.
Okay, so I think Regional Council, how many of them are conservatives, or most of them are liberal and other. So there's two sides of the coin here. So we have Regional Council with very few conservatives on it. We have a lot of liberals and whoever else is on there, a.k.a. Rob Deutschman and guys like that, who are now running for Liberal Party. So what is it, conservative with on one end, and then Regional Council with all the liberals on it? So who do you blame?
Well, that's a great question as to who to blame. This seems to be a project that's engineered by the province, but I'm not sure what you necessarily mean by the Regional Council being more left-leaning. I don't see what that's got to do with the story.
Well, the story is the guy you had on before says we're not going to vote conservative anymore because of this, but now we have all the left-leaning Regional Council who has a secret documentation. So wouldn't the people want to know what that means? Like, I don't buy it. I don't like this arrangement they have with secrets and all that stuff. So, like I said, you can pick the liberal or the left-leaning Regional Council who signed this secret deal, or you can blame somebody else who's conservative. So you got to pick one, right?
I think, okay, I get where you're coming from. And I realize the connection you're trying to make here. I'm not sure I see it. In fact, I am sure. I don't see it the same way that you do. The non-disclosure agreement that's at play here, it has got less to do with secret documentation, if you will, and more to do with the protection of business interests, so to speak, when it comes to acquiring that land, right? Because if the financials are more public, it becomes that much more difficult to ultimately acquire the land. As I understand it, that's what the non-disclosure agreement is all about. It's not as though there's some big, massive secret that the regional government has been asked to keep. It's just basically it would be par for the course in any sort of business dealing. But your point about Regional Council being more left-leaning versus the conservative government that's in place in Ontario currently, I'm not entirely convinced, especially after some of the land has already been purchased. I'm not entirely convinced that any change in government provincially, which I don't think we're getting anyway, but even if there were to be a change in government provincially, I don't know that this project is necessarily going to be stopped. That's just my take on it from where I'm sitting. We'll take more of your calls after this. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just ahead of our update in the 570 News Center, let's get back to the phones. Mary, good morning.
Oh, hi. Have I got a few seconds?
Yes.
Good morning, I should say. I've called Mike Harris's office, at least 4 times, never, ever, ever had a reply, ever. And after Ford announced we're having an election, I get a call from some conservative about it, and I said, well, I vote conservative all the time, but I'm not voting conservative this time because of all the things that Doug Ford has done. There's lies, there's the RCMP report, and I think they're going to find out. A lot of people are going to feel the same way. I'm not sure they'll get this big majority.
All right, Mary. I got to run to get to news. Thanks for calling. Good to hear from you, as always. A conservative vote lost, at least one, as we're early days of this election campaign. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, as you know, I was away last week traveling, coincidentally to this story, with the Kitchener Rangers as they were on a road trip through Sault Ste. Marie, Flint, and Saginaw. And while I was away, several of you made me aware of a story from back here at home, in Brantford to be exact, where a young hockey player, 14-year-old Taven Rollins, was being bullied in what I can only describe as the most disgusting ways possible by his own teammates within the Brantford Minor Hockey Association. And this led to a number of people beginning an I Stand with Taven sort of movement online. There is a happy ending to the story, though, as Taven has now been welcomed into a new hockey family. But the story of the bullying won't go away anytime soon, that is for sure. Norman Proctor is the president of the Warlords Hockey Academy in Oxford Township and makes time for our show. Norman, good morning.
Good morning.
How did you first become aware of Taven Rollins' plight in Brantford?
His mother actually had sent us an email last Sunday. I had actually at that time already had seen it from social media. A few of the children that play on our U15 team actually know this child. They're from Brantford as well. So the post had already started spreading at that point. And I actually read through my emails, and his mother had reached out. And we had a goalie that had moved out west just before Christmas on our U15 team, so we ended up with an open spot.
That worked out.
Worked out perfectly.
Yeah, it certainly did. So you were able to welcome Taven into the Warlords Hockey Academy fold.
Correct. I reached out to her on Tuesday and invited him out to practice, and went about applying for league exemption because our rosters were frozen as of January 1st. And our league and the other teams in the division all unanimously approved him being able to play with us this season.
How did the rest of your team take it?
Our team was actually pretty excited about it. They've been, they've had 2 goalies all season. Obviously, for the other goalie in the situation, it can be a little difficult because all the eyes are on Taven now. That was my biggest concern, was the other goalie, how he would react to it. The other kids have welcomed him aboard, and just like he's one of their own. So, like I said, that helped that there's a few of them have actually played with him in the past in Brantford. So it made it actually a pretty easy transition.
As someone who is in the position that you are, Norman, as the president of a hockey academy, and you talk about a U15 team, you're dealing with young hockey players all the time. What was your reaction to what you had seen when it comes to the bullying that Taven was on the receiving end of? The
level of bullying that Taven received was extreme. These
kids, I get it. They talk a lot. I have never seen it get to the point that this one had gotten to, where they rename a group Kill Tavin. At that level, obviously this has been going on for some time, and I'm not sure of all the details at their end, obviously, but for something to progress like that, I have 3 boys of my own, and I've never seen bullying progress to that level. And my boys have all played sports all through their lives. So it's beyond anything I've seen before.
As someone who is a leader in minor hockey, such as yourself, Norman, what steps are in place to prevent against this sort of thing from happening within the Warlords Hockey Academy, for example?
Generally, we deal with each of these cases individually, because each case actually really is individual. Like I said, the case with Tavin here in Brantford was an extreme case, which we've never had to deal with prior. We've had cases where different little things have been said, and we deal with that directly. If it can't be done at the coaches level, then we get involved. And if it can't be dealt with at our level, we go to the ORHL, which is the league that we do play in, and we deal with it that way. You should never allow it to get to this level. This is what happens when it gets to this level, and we would not want something like that, and we would never tolerate a child being treated this way in our organization.
How is Tavin doing? I know he got into a game on the weekend, and you said the rest of the team's been pretty supportive. How's the young man doing?
Tavin, I've only actually met him once myself. I had to go to Boston for a tournament this weekend myself. But Tavin was very well received this weekend. The whole ORHL has shown support. We had his first game. He got a standing ovation. There was hundreds of people watching him. The online support has been overwhelming. I believe there's 1.2 million hits on us welcoming him into our organization. I imagine for him it's a lot of nerves, but he actually stood out there and got a shutout in his first game. And his second game, he had a shutout with 5 minutes remaining. So he's handling the pressure incredibly well, to be honest.
You mentioned, Norman, and I would certainly agree that this case that Tavin was on the receiving end of represents an extreme form of bullying. There's no question. Do you worry at all, or do you believe that bullying is prevalent in minor hockey still today?
Oh, bullying is very prevalent in minor hockey. It always has been. It just doesn't usually get to this extreme. Possibly social media is making things worse, and stuff that probably used to be said that was never heard is now being seen, which creates more complex situations that I'm hoping don't evolve further than this. No one deserves this level of bullying, especially this level of bullying that's in your face nonstop. For a child to wake up to something like that is beyond comprehension in my eyes.
Do you have any insight as to how the Brantford Minor Hockey Association, which I believe is under the purview of the Ontario Hockey Association, how they can deal with this, or how they will deal with this?
I believe they have a special process, which is there's a whole lot of political red tape in minor hockey, as we all know. They didn't deal with it directly themselves. They had to go through a safe sport program, which can take up to 150 days to review. By that time, the child's season's over. And at that time, no one had been suspended, from what I was told. I believe all those children have been suspended as of now. From the latest stories I've heard, I can't confirm that. Obviously, I'm not with Brantford Minor. But they have to go through the whole process, which can, like I said, take up to 150 days.
Well, I'm certainly glad the Warlords were able to find room for Tavin on their roster, and kudos to you and the entire academy, Norman, for making this happen for the young man. Thanks for joining the show this morning, and thanks for what you did for Tavin.
Thank you. I appreciate you reaching out.
Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Norman Proctor is the president of the Warlords Hockey Academy. This story, I mean, I don't even want to dignify it by making public any of the nonsense that went on around this, but you heard Norman make reference to the the group chat that had been formed called Kill Taven, and the screenshots that were shared online of the comments contained within said group chat. Like, this is a team. These are your own teammates. It's beyond the pale. And I think Brantford Minor Hockey's got some serious questions to answer in all of this, because they essentially deferred to their umbrella organization. I think it was the Ontario Hockey Association, not the Ontario Hockey Federation. I'll confirm that. But either way, there's a process under the umbrella organization that it has been, sent up the chain to. That doesn't cut it for me. With this level of bullying and the absolutely vile things that were said. Personally, if I was the coach of that team, the team would have been suspended. Like, we would have stopped playing hockey. And parents can yell and scream, and we can figure out how to get them refunds, but no team should be able to continue playing, being put out on the ice when behavior like that is happening within the team. It churns my stomach. I'm glad that Taven was able to find a home with the Warlords Hockey Academy in Oxford County, and he will go on now playing hockey, as kids should be allowed to do, free from bullying. I'm sure many of you saw this story over the last number of days. Happy to hear your thoughts on it here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Bullying is very prevalent in minor hockey. It always has been. It just doesn't usually get to this extreme. Possibly social media is making things worse, and stuff that probably used to be said that was never heard is now being seen, which creates more complex situations that I'm hoping don't evolve further than this. No one deserves this level of bullying, especially this level of bullying that's in your face nonstop. For a child to wake up to something like that is beyond comprehension in my eyes.
I could not agree more with Norman Proctor, who's the president of the Warlords Hockey Academy in Oxford County, the hockey academy that came to the rescue of Taven Rollins, a 14-year-old hockey player who had been playing in the Brantford Minor Hockey Association until the bullying within his own team got so extreme. It ignited a storm on social media. And the Brantford Minor Hockey Association, which is under the umbrella of the Ontario Hockey Federation, so it's the OHF, pardon me. But Brantford Minor Hockey says when complaints like this come in, they have to be handled by an outside third party called the Safe Sport tab. And beyond that, the Brantford Minor Hockey Association washes its hands of the whole thing. I can't believe the team was still allowed to stay on the ice. I honestly cannot. I think this is a huge cop-out by Brantford Minor Hockey, but nonetheless, let's go to the phones here from you. Steve, good morning.
Good morning. So I'm going to try not to eat up the rest of your show here, because I could easily. I sympathize and I agree with what the guy you had on there said. I'm a coach myself. I've been on your show several times, and I've been promoting KMHA here in town. I coach two teams right now. I have another son who plays on a rep team, and I have a daughter who just started playing her first year. I can tell you, I haven't had a more difficult year than I've had this year. Right from the get-go, we had issues. My 14-year-old son, he is a house leaguer, and he was, for the first time, he broke into the select. He was asked to be an AP for the select team. And we had an incident with my house league team with some of the select players, just ordinary, just typical 14-year-old boy crap at an arena. The complaints were made. Complaints were made against one of the kids who turned out to be the wrong kid, right? Because, his dad is rich and powerful and has lots of say and lots of influence. And lo and behold, my son was no longer wanted on the select team. There was social media stuff all about him. Concerned parent sent some images to me of the chats that were in it. Then it just kind of spitballed from there. And to this very day, despite having repeated emails, conversations, meetings with KMHA and the director of House League, just this past weekend I was away in Peterborough for my son's rep tournament and watched his game on Live Barn and was utterly disgusted with the coach, who is the coach of the select team, was on the bench and was chirping my son right up to the end of the game where my team beat them. 16 seconds left in the game, one of the select players decided to rubbed my son out, who knew that he wasn't going to catch him going behind the net, and instead just shoved him into the boards and injured him. I've since filed another complaint. I sent an email off to the same guy asking why this is continuing to happen. Every game we play, the select players are out there, and it's not all of them. It's just a handful of bad ones.
So, Steve, I just got to be clear. This is all happening within Kitchener minor hockey, you're saying?
That's right.
Okay, yeah, and your son is being targeted because why? Because you complained about another player? Because
I made a complaint, and it spitballed from there about I'm trying to get people kicked off of the select team, which is a total joke. What really happened was a player who wasn't even on my team happened to be with some friends at an arena and caused trouble with my team.
So why do you stay involved? Why do you still coach teams? Why do you still put up with this?
Because I feel like I have, one, it's a passion of mine. I love the game of hockey, and I have made a commitment to other kids on my team. We've got 16 kids on my team, and, they're all good kids.
And you can't get anywhere with Kitchener minor hockey in terms of trying to get this rectified.
It's still going on.
It's still going on.
And the funny thing is, I actually had the head convener running my bench this weekend while I was away. And after everything happened, he told me he was very disappointed in my son and my son's attitude. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? So I had to go back and watch the game. And then I called him back and I was like, well, I'll tell you what's happening. And then when I told him everything, he's like, oh, my God, I had no idea. I had no idea any of this happened. I was like, well, how do you not have any idea? You're the freaking convener.
All right. I get you, Stephen. I got to run on to other callers on this, but because we're just getting into a lot of the weeds there. The situation in Brantford, full-on bullying within the team. And fortunately, the young player has found a new home with a new team. But I have heard lots of concerns raised about issues within minor hockey across this province. Pedro, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing, bud?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Listen, quick comment here. Those players who are caught bullying other players should have a lifetime ban in minor hockey. Plain and simple.
Pedro, I'm usually reluctant to bring down the heavy hammer, but when you see these screenshots, the stuff is awful.
It's disgusting. These are kids who are trying to enjoy a sport.
Yeah.
If other kids are doing that, what are they going to do when they're older? Lifetime ban. That's it. You can't play by the rules. You can't play. Plain and simple.
Yeah, Pedro, appreciate that call. I know it's the hardline approach, but as I said before the break, if I'm the coach of that team, the team's done. That hockey association, even while you're sending it off to this third party for further review, suspend the team. Yeah, and I know, well, there's good kids and you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Too damn bad. The team, oh my goodness, they should not be on the ice. These young men, these boys, should not be allowed to continue to have the privilege of continuing to play after the things that they said in a group chat entitled "Kill My Teammate's Name Here." Ridiculous. And at some point, we got to draw the line here. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. A reminder for you that even though this is the first Tuesday of the month, our police leaders will not be with us today between 11 and noon. We couldn't make the schedules align this week, so they will join us next week for the monthly Ask the Chief segment. It will not happen today. However, today, in the next hour between 11 and noon, you'll hear from a digital strategist on how digital campaigns are being run as an election campaign is underway. Plus, you'll hear from a local musician who's got a survivor's story to share about her cancer journey. That's in the hour between 11 and 12. Right now, it's off to the 570 News Center for your 10:30 update. Then our Tuesday Tech Spotlight and a spotlight on the role that women played in Canada's war effort. That's coming up in your next 30 minutes. Here on the Mike Farwell Show, this is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Something else we do here on the show on a regular basis is shine a light on one of the tech companies in our community. It is the Tuesday Tech Spotlight. It happens on the first Tuesday of every month at 10:30. And we're joined this morning by Albert Mansour, who's the co-founder and CEO at ConeLabs Inc. Albert, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Love to learn more about all of these cool and innovative things going on in the region, not the least of which is ConeLabs. What is it that you do there?
So we have automated the task of inspection. So we're a team of engineers that have built a software that essentially takes the same images that structural inspectors look through. So if you imagine, a typical bridge inspection could be thousands of images. We feed that into our system and we produce a 3D model. So, we now take it from two-dimensional images to a three-dimensional model. And then we've built out an AI that will detect those same typical defects that we look for. And I say we because I'm a structural engineer that has performed these very inspections.
So was it that background as a structural engineer that led you into this platform that does this work for you?
Absolutely. I felt the problem firsthand. I knew how manual it was, how resource intensive the task is. So as technology allowed us to, we were able to build out a solution like ConeLabs.
You won also in your process here as a founder, the $25,000 prize at the Communitech Fast Track Cities Showcase event. What is Fast Track Cities?
So Fast Track Cities is an event where it's hosted by Communitech, but regions like the city of Kitchener participate, and it's a way for startups like ours to kind of bypass that typical procurement process, put these new technologies in front of these decision makers, and we present the potential of applying our technology and how we can make things better. So, thankfully we participated and were winners at the Fast Track City Showcase, and as a result now we are inspecting some key infrastructure with the city of Kitchener. So, from that has come a customer that otherwise would have taken us kind of a longer time to lock in. So, there's an amazing benefit for startups like us.
Is the primary application that ConeLabs Inc. is responsible for, Albert, is it really just saving the time in those inspections?
Yeah, it's saving time. If you Google structural failure, unfortunately, it's not long. It's pretty frequent that we see key infrastructure fail, and experience catastrophic failure. So saving time is what we do, but I think ultimately we allow our inspectors to keep up. It's so resource intensive that we can't keep up with the demand, and as a result, we're not inspecting as thoroughly or as comprehensively as we should, and then the results are unfortunate.
Sometimes I think that when there is disruption like this to a traditional way of doing things, the industry can be slow to adopt or even reluctant to adopt. But as engineers by trade, I get the sense that maybe, Albert, in this space, because you're always looking for ways to innovate, maybe this was embraced more readily?
In civil engineering in general, construction in general, we tend to lag behind a little bit when it comes to the adoption of technology. And it's not because we don't love technology, but it's because the consequences of failure are too big. So we tend to stay traditional in the way we do things. So when we first started this journey, Mike, the automatic answer was, well, there's no way you can replace a human. And we're not trying to replace humans, so we're trying to aid in the task. So kind of lift that burden of that arduous task of inspection and looking for every last little defect, have our software do it so we could free up our time to do a secondary inspection on areas that are suspicious or look like they need a second look. And over the years, so we've been doing this since 23, the reception has increased. So we're starting to see more and more, even civil engineers, seek out technologies like ours, accept that AI has its role in helping us, be more efficient and be faster in the manual tasks that we do today. So nowadays, it's a much different reception than we received early on when we first introduced our technology.
Why did you decide to build ConeLabs here in Waterloo Region?
So, I mean, I grew up in KW. I'm a University of Waterloo grad, but interestingly, our whole team met in Toronto. So we were all at a previous company in Toronto, and we were tinkering for the first few months, but we got to a point where it was time to establish ourselves and to choose where our office will be. I tried to remove my bias from the decision, but the entire team, we explored, we looked around, and we were always drawn to the region, the ecosystem, the energy, the network around us. It was undeniable, and then of course I did not say no to that decision. So when we first got there, we only physically set our office up in the KW region, but now we've plugged ourselves into the ecosystem more and more, and we're now based out of Communitech Hub, and that energy, we're feeling it, and we're feeling that kind of propellant behind us from the ecosystem that exists in the region.
I love how you talk about that ecosystem, Albert, because I've heard much about it, but obviously I'm outside looking in. And I wonder if during this process of making the decision that you tried to keep your bias out of, but ultimately landing here, I mean, was it possible that you might have built this in a market in the United States, for example?
We participated in Techstars Chicago, so we had plenty of exposure to the United States. But when we met some of the folks in the region, the caliber of experience and wisdom that existed for me matched or exceeded anyone we had met, even while we spent 3 months in the U.S. So, I was telling my wife the other day, I don't think ConeLabs could be built anywhere but the Waterloo region. We have the University of Waterloo, the access there. Mike, we've met folks around the world. And when you say you're based in Waterloo, there's an instant comfort that you see in the faces of individuals from Europe, from the U.S. So I feel like we belong there. I don't think ConeLabs could have moved as fast anywhere else.
So you had mentioned that Fast Track Cities competition helping propel you into that relationship with the city of Kitchener as a client. What's next for ConeLabs? Is it just getting wider spread adoption of your technology?
Yeah, our technology is built. It's ready to go. So that's the plan here. Is we're really focused on building out, identifying our beachhead and then building a sales mechanism behind it. So, thankfully we're about to announce that we have some major assets that we've now our technology has been selected to inspect. So major critical assets in Ontario and abroad. So that's the plan, is just to continue that momentum.
It is an incredible story, and I love to learn more about it. Albert, thanks very much for making time for the show this morning.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Albert Mansour is the CEO and co-founder of ConeLabs Inc., another startup right here in the region of Waterloo, because as you heard Albert say, when they sat down to decide where to physically locate themselves, where else would you go? And the comfort level that exists when they are meeting people industry related around the world. You mentioned Waterloo, and there's an understanding and a comfort of what comes out of the tech ecosystem here. Albert Mansour, the CEO and co-founder of ConeLabs Inc., joining us for our Tuesday Tech Spotlight here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every once in a while, a story comes along to remind us that it was not only men who were a part of Canada's war effort. Yes, to the front lines, and we talked about all of those young men who enlisted with thoughts of seeing an exotic faraway land and ending up in trenches, etc. That is the traditional war story that we hear. However, every once in a while, those stories come along that remind us that as men went off to war, there were women who were very much a part of the war effort, usually back home, sometimes abroad as well. But a stage play opening Friday in Cambridge will tell that story in another way. Very pleased to be joined on the show this morning by Rachel Coopery, who's the director of Waiting for the Parade, which opens Friday. Rachel, good morning.
Good morning.
And Jackie Mahoney joins us as well. Jackie is one of the performers, one of the actors in Waiting for the Parade. Jackie, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Rachel, can you tell us a little more about the production Waiting for the Parade?
Absolutely, yeah. So Waiting for the Parade is a play that was written by a Canadian in the late 70s, and it's been produced a number of times. So there are certainly some people that will be coming to the show that have a familiarity with the play itself. It really speaks to what the women's experience was like on the home front while they were separated from their loved ones by forces beyond their control. So I think, when I first read this play, it was really the strength of the monologues that really spoke to me. There's just such an unflinching emotional depth to the voices of these women. And I think it really kind of sheds a more personal light on what it was like at the time for the women living through that experience.
Jackie, just in listening to that synopsis from Rachel, it sounds like it's quite the challenge as a performer with these monologues and bringing that emotional depth onto the stage. How do you approach a role like this?
It certainly is difficult, but it's also a really great joy to be able to take the experiences of these women that aren't often shared with people in our traditional retellings of history. And so it's just about tapping into, familiar emotions that we've all gone through as people. Often our loved ones go away for unexpected reasons, and so I think a lot of us have that experience of waiting for someone, of expecting news, and having to be patient and just wait to see what's going to come out in the end. So that's how I do it.
I really like the way you put that. Is there anybody in your family or even a friend's story that you can draw on for inspiration? I know we're getting a long ways away from World War II now, which is the setting for this particular play. But is there any person or story you can draw on for inspiration?
Oh, certainly. I have friends who have gone overseas and they've had to do quite remarkable things that take up a lot of their time and a lot of their mental space. And so we often go long periods of time without speaking. And it's just about thinking of them often and trying our best to put our good vibes toward them out into the universe and hoping they're okay, but just waiting patiently.
Rachel, how do you approach this as a director to make sure you're getting, the maximum from your performers and also ensuring that the audience goes away satisfied?
Mm-hmm. Yes, as a director, it's my approach is really to look at things from a bigger perspective and kind of to work with my actors to kind of get a performance from them that is going to speak to the audience in the way that we want it to. So, it's been a really lovely process of working with my cast. I've been so fortunate to have such a wonderful group of women to work with through this process. So, it's been a process of, working with them in order to say, how do you see this character? We started off with some table work at the beginning of our rehearsal process in which we kind of talked through the characters and the relationships. And I think that's really informed a lot of the work that we've done since then.
How does our little theatre in Galt stack up? Does it present you any challenges to put this on?
The Galt Theatre is actually a wonderful space. I've been in there a few times before as a performer, but this is my first time directing in that space. So it's been interesting to get to see it from a different perspective and to kind of get to work with a lot of the designers in order to, bring this work to the stage.
Yeah, it really is a lovely space. There's no question about it. Jackie, what is it that draws you to the stage?
Well, I've been acting since I was quite young, and it's always really fun to be able to inhabit another person's experiences and to be able to see things from a perspective that we wouldn't traditionally get to see. So my character, Eve, is a school teacher, and she has this husband who is, he's a piece of work.
Aren't we all, Jackie? Aren't we all?
And so it's very interesting to live that person's life for a little while. And I think it creates a really unique form of empathy that we wouldn't otherwise get the chance to experience.
About 72 hours or so from this Tuesday morning to Friday's curtain raising. How are we feeling this morning, Jackie? Are we ready? We're ready to break a leg?
I think so. I mean, there's always a bit of nerves, but it's been really wonderful working with Rachel and with the other members of the cast. We've developed such a strong and inspiring group of women that it feels really wonderful to be able to bring it to the audience in Cambridge.
Rachel, what about you going to the other side? You mentioned you've performed in the venue before, but now this is your first crack at directing there.
That's correct, yeah.
How are you feeling ahead of the show?
I feel like we are in a really good place. I feel like this cast is really ready for an audience. You know, it's always an interesting transition from, we've been working on this for a number of months, just with the five women that are acting in this play, and now we get to share this with the community. So I'm really excited to see what kind of different things that brings out in our performances.
Really looking forward to the show as it opens on Friday. Thank you both very much for making time for our show this morning to talk about it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jackie Mahoney and Rachel Coopery. Rachel is directing Waiting for the Parade. Jackie is one of the actors in it. It opens Friday night. The first evening performance is on Friday the 7th. It runs through Friday the 16th. Evening shows are at 7:30. Matinees are at 2. If you want tickets, they're just $25, and you can get them at CambridgeCommunityPlayers.com. Curtain raises on Waiting for the Parade this Friday at the Theatre, 47 Water Street in Galt. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. About 30 minutes from now, we will have with us in studio a local musician who is in the midst of a cancer journey. Learn about that journey and how it has changed her perspective. That's coming up just after the 11:30 news. But after this update from the 570 News Center, the election campaign is underway, but things have changed. Yeah, lawn signs are still a thing, but what about the digital campaign strategy? What does that look like? How much might be spent on it in this election? We'll analyze some of those details coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, when we talk about election campaigns, we often talk about the ground game, getting out there, knocking on doors, making people aware that you are their candidate and what it is you are going to do for them. I know that one of the candidates in the riding where I live was out and about because I received through my work email a number of notifications that it was some sort of Super Saturday while I was away last weekend. But sure enough, I got home and there were election signs on lawns in and around my neighborhood. But it's not just election signs and those physical pieces of literature or advertising, if you will, that we will see on lawns or in our mailboxes. The digital campaign is also increasingly important. And here to talk more about that is Harneet Singh, who's the managing principal at EOK Consults. Harneet, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Love the chance to look at this through your eyes as somebody who puts together digital campaigns. When you look at an election campaign like this, how do you view it? What do you see?
When we look at an election campaign like this, we have a surprise election. We have a short campaign period, which puts all the parties on their toes. They don't have the time or the luxury of time to define the narrative, define the ballot box questions. It's been defined for them. And the question becomes for any campaign is, how do I reach the maximum number of people possible in the shortest amount of time most effectively? And it's no surprise that, as you know, it's hard to get volunteers. It's hard to get people to do things and door knocking and canvassing. A lot of people don't like it anymore that you come to their doors and, it's winter. It's hard to get volunteers to give their time and energy. So Over the last 4 to 5 years specifically, we have seen a complete shift in which campaigns are investing their time and strategy and bringing the right team together to do campaigns online. And a prime example of that is what I say, do you know that since June 2019, so our last big election, then we had the COVID election federally, over $200 million have been spent on campaign-related spending on just Facebook and Instagram ads across Canada. So that's a big number. And provincially, if you look at the numbers, last time we had a provincial election in 2022, we saw that if you look at the overall expenditure by all the leading parties, they spend more than $35 million together for all their campaigns. Over 60% of that was just advertising. And out of that, half was literally online advertising. So it's definitely grown. And in a campaign like this, as I mentioned, it's going to be one of the most important thing, if not the most important thing, for you to win.
Do you anticipate, Harneet, that the spending will go up above that $35 million you mentioned for 2022? Will we see more this time around?
Absolutely, Mike. So we looked at our numbers. We crunched the numbers from not only first-party advertisers, which are the parties themselves, the candidates. We also looked at the third-party advertising, which becomes really important in campaigns like these. You have a lot of advocacy organizations. You have a lot of organizations attacking one side or the other. And if you combine all of that, EOK Consults, our numbers predict over $50 million in advertising, and out of which we expect over $30 million to just be online advertising. So the ads you see on Google, the ads you see on YouTube, the ads you see on TVs connected to your internet, all of that together, we're looking at over $30 million.
So I mentioned at the outset that when we talk about election campaigns, we talk about a ground game. But I think we could use the same language, really, for the digital ground game. How much more emphasis is there on the digital ground game in such a short election campaign?
In ridings, which I am finding the data looking at the ridings, which are, let's call them the close ridings, the ridings which are up for grabs for any of the candidates or the parties, digital actually is becoming the X factor to win. You can have a lot of volunteers on the doors, but if you're not letting people know that election is coming, a lot of people are not tuned in right now for an election. We were not expecting one. And given the tariffs and the situation we have right now, a lot of us don't even want it. So in this situation, I feel digital for a lot of things is becoming the thing to play on. And I've often seen that campaigns which kind of lacked on their ground game, but did a good job online, were able to build the momentum, which then went into their ground game as well. So if you were canvassing online and you were telling people that the election's coming and this is the campaign, this is the policy, and imagine the next time you door knock and that person opens the door and they say, oh, we've already seen your ads. I like you or I don't like you. And thank you for that. And I'm going to vote for you. That's the biggest vote of confidence, pun intended, in a lot of campaigns we work on, is that when the campaigns door knock, they already have seen them. They've seen the policy. They've seen the candidate and the party. And they're like, we're going to vote for you. So to me, the digital game in a short campaign period becomes all the more important.
How do we measure the effectiveness or the results of a digital campaign?
That's the unicorn question. All our clients ask us, so that is the perfect question. So, digital gives you a lot of KPIs, key performance indicators, the metrics which let you evaluate if that campaign is good or not. So how would a typical brand look at advertising? They would look at the number of people reached, the number of impressions the ad comes, and how many people did end up buying or talking about the brand, and those kind of metrics. So on the digital world, we have similar metrics. So we can look at, if we run a video ad and we look at the video and we promote it to a lot of people, how many people saw it? And the beauty of digital is how granular the metrics get. So you can actually tell how many people watched it for 10 seconds or more, how many people watched it for 30 seconds or more, and how many people watched all of your content or just one of your videos. So when campaigns evaluate with us the success of a campaign online, they look at metrics like people engaged, people reached, how many likes, shares, reactions they got, but also how many voters were they able to influence through the efforts online. What that means is you can drive people to do things when you run online ads. So you can take people from the ad to your website and you can have them convert. And what that means is you can sign up for a pledge, you can sign up to vote, and you can say, I want to be a volunteer. So when you look at those actions on the website, it becomes easier for a campaign to evaluate not only their performance, but also ours when we support them.
You're getting to something else I was wondering about, Harneet, and that is around the strategy, let's say, that goes into a digital campaign. Because I often have looked at election signs on properties as, you know, he or she who plants the most signs wins. It just seems to be, let's just put as many out there as we possibly can. Do you do that similarly with a digital strategy? The more impressions you get or the more eyeballs that can see it, the better? Or is there more thought given to what it is we're seeing?
That's an amazing question. Thanks, Mike. So I'm pretty sure there's more thought into it. You know, a lot of times we say you can be very popular or throw a lot of money at a problem, which is if you're trying to win and you're trying to unseat an incumbent, you may think that just by spending a lot of money and getting a lot of impressions, I'm winning. But what happens that when you do an ad which is very popular, in quotes, but people are hating the ad, people are hating the candidate. So you have to have a fine balance. In digital marketing for campaigns, what we see is more money is generally better because you overall increase your awareness. But I always say the winning formula is a good candidate, a good policy, and a good party backed by a good strategy. So you can never forget that just having enough money would not help. And I'll point out that case, if you don't mind. If in the U.S. we saw Kamala Harris campaign spent over $111 million, on Facebook advertising, while the Trump campaign only spent $2.5 million on Facebook advertising. So that's a day and night of difference. So more money can help if spent wisely, but having a strategy and a proper plan that's the first step to start with.
We are in the early days of this election campaign, Harneet, but I think we can look in this region, particularly maybe Kitchener Centre, catching your attention as a place where we can see the digital ground game starting to take shape.
Absolutely. I think Kitchener Centre is one of the races we're watching for sure closely. You have a candidate, Aisling Clancy, the existing MPP, who had a really solid by-election digital as well as ground game in the past, a large team of volunteers. They spend a lot of money on advertising, not only on Google, but also Meta. And now you have strong contenders against her, trying to get that spot. And Kitchener Centre is a unique riding which is known to be, swingy. They can move and the voters need to be appealed properly. So what we're seeing right now is we have Councillor Colleen James from the region of Waterloo, and again, an excellent candidate, a good background, a good personal brand. And some of the things we notice are very unique. So obviously with Aisling Clancy's website, you have the Green Party logo, you have the Green Party support. You had Mike Schreiner, the leader, come in recently to support her campaign and the Super Canvas, which is great. She's a party candidate, one of the strongest voices on the team. Colleen James, very well known. The name is known in the riding. But when you look at her website, for example, you look at the campaign they're building, you would find that there's not a lot of mention of the Ontario Liberal Party on her brand. It's about her as the person and her background and why people should trust the individual. So these are some of the unique nuances we see. So far, what we have seen based on the numbers, the Aisling Clancy campaign is definitely spending more at this point. We haven't seen a lot of action from the other candidates, but that's typically possible when you have a start of the campaign. We're literally in the first week. As we go more forward, I would not be surprised if the other campaigns pull out more tools from their toolkit and start deploying those ads as well. I
don't know how you found time to sit down and talk with me today, Harneet, given that the campaign is in its infancy. What do the next 3 weeks look like for you?
The next 3 weeks for us is we have a lot of ridings we're working on. We are also working on provincial-wide policy ideas and support we are doing for a lot of campaigns. So it's absolutely busy, but this is the business we are in. So it's the best time to be in this business. But at the same time, it'll be important to see what kind of policy ideas get forward. We as a community, we as a province and as a country have some big challenges ahead of us. And it'll be important to see which party can take that message and get that forward and so that the voters can vote on it. So we always look for the best strategy, the best ads. Obviously, we hope that our candidates win and our parties win, but at the same time, we're in the business of looking at how campaigning as a whole is changing in this country and how we can be at the forefront of that innovation.
It is a fascinating time and some great insight from you. Thanks very much for being here for the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Harneet Singh joining us, Managing Principal with EOK Consults, joining us on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Some fascinating insights this morning from Harneet Singh, who's the managing principal with EOK Consults, about the digital ground game, if you will, when it comes to the election campaign we are now in the midst of, expecting some $50 million or more to be spent province-wide on digital campaigns during this election, which is a short window, and that can make the digital campaign that much more important because you can get the message out pretty quickly, right? And you can save the all-important time of walking door to door to door to meet people. A few things come out of this for me. One of them, obviously, selfishly, I want you to do your campaigning on the radio, please and thank you. Okay, this still remains, and I'm not just saying this, it does. You can look it up if you want to. But this medium, radio, remains one of the most impactful mediums that you can employ for getting a message out there. But there's no question that in modern times, there is an increasing emphasis on digital campaigns. We've got lots of stuff going on that complements what we do here on the radio through our website, and there's a digital strategy attached to that. So I'm not naive, but selfishly, of course, and for self-preservation, I really want you to use this medium first, okay? And then we'll consider the other stuff. But when we do consider the other stuff, one of the things that Harneet mentioned when it comes to the advantages of a digital strategy is that it saves people from knocking on doors. Now, look, in part, we've got some pretty rotten weather, right? It's cold, it's slippery, it's hard to rally those volunteers to get out in weather like this and really work on that physical or tangible ground game, knocking on the doors, visiting with people. But the other side of that coin is we aren't all that interested often in having people knock on our doors, right? We don't want to engage in those conversations largely. I will say again, to any candidate who is interested in the conversation, I am more than happy to have it on my doorstep. It's a pretty busy month for us with the Kitchener Rangers, but if I'm home, I'm there for the conversation. I don't care which party you represent. I would love to have the political conversation on my doorstep. But, you know, when the people that are, I don't know, trying to sell you a telecom plan or a gutter guard or appealing for a charitable cause, as much as I like my charities, I find my own ways of going about that. I'm not that inclined to have those conversations either. And it reminds me of a story that my buddy I like to refer to as Producer Mike sent me, which is from Nottingham College in the UK, which has begun a new course that helps young people combat their growing fear of making or taking a telephone call, the so-called telephobia. And this is a real thing. And when I think about our disinterest in engaging with people who knock on our doors, or maybe the disinterest of the people doing the knocking, like, man, I want to help with your campaign, but couldn't I just help you make a splashy digital ad instead of, you know, actually having to go and talk to somebody else? We had, I kid you not, I don't mind telling this tale out of school, a young person who joined our news team here at the radio station, and when asked to make a phone call to talk to somebody to do an interview for a story, just couldn't wrap their heads around the idea of actually doing that. And I thought, well, how did you ever get through a college program for broadcasting and not have conducted an interview? Like, we can't do them all electronically. You know how I feel. I've made this clear, especially of late, how I feel about statements. You know, organizations or institutions that send you a statement about this, that, or the other thing. That doesn't cut it. We need to have, like, this is an audio medium, right? We need to hear voices. And more importantly, we need the ability to ask questions so that you will answer them so that we can understand the reason behind your explanation, right? But I do, there is a part of me, and I actually support, too, online voting. But if you think about this, we have fewer people interested in knocking on doors, fewer people interested in answering them. A course that's been designed at a college in the UK to help overcome telephobia because people literally are afraid of making or taking a phone call. We are moving further and further away from our human interactions. And this concerns me more than a little bit. I try not to let it concern me, but when I put all of these pieces together, I wonder what the next 25 years looks like. Will we only be communicating electronically by then? I sure as hell hope not. Like, I would like to start trying to push this barn door shut again. I don't know how you feel about it. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a cancer story, and I know that cancer has affected so many of us, either directly or indirectly through the experience of a friend or other loved one. Another such story is coming up with us this morning here on the Mike Farwell Show. Stay with us, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I want to break free. I want to break free. Saturday life's under pressure. We break through that within ourselves. One more chance. Why can't we give love that one more chance? Yes, I'm coming. Hold on. Yeah, I'm coming. Everybody's working for the weekend. Don't stop believing. Hold on to streetlights, people. Don't stop.
Now, that's what I call a medley, but I feel as though I should just address directly to my guests in studio. How did that sound?
It sounded good.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah.
I wonder why.
I don't know.
Did you have anything to do with the creation of that medley?
I stood in front of a microphone and recorded, and then one of my band brothers took that and did some magic with it, Jack. Yeah.
Oh, I thought the band brother was in studio with you this morning. No, so
No,
Stephen, you had
this-
nothing to do with this?
I came up with the concept.
Okay. Stephen Ropp and Leah Friede with Something's Always Flying. Those were the sounds you heard as we began this segment, and Stephen and Leah joined me in studio. Good morning, Leah.
Good morning.
Rob, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Glad to hear it. Leah, you are the inspiration for our conversation this morning because when last I saw or heard,
Yes.
both,
Yes.
Something's Always Flying. And I hope that, I assume that many listening today have also been in a place where you all were performing in the past because you're very well known, very well established in the community. And when last we saw one another, you shared with me the journey that you had been on and thought we would check in on that and see where we're at today. So take us back to the beginning of your health journey.
Yeah, so it's been quite a ride. It's been a calm ride, full of grace, full of miracles. I actually went into the hospital to get my gallbladder checked. And that's when they discovered something on my kidney. So I went through the gallbladder operation, had my gallbladder removed. It was the size of a chicken egg. Had no idea that was in there. I'd been singing for years with that in there. So that's gone. My voice has improved considerably. And then they pulled me aside and then they said, we need to talk. And we found something and it looks like it's been there for a while. And what do you want to do about it? Immediately I said, let's get it out. Let's just get it out. Because I've had experience with several family members all succumbing to cancer. And I wanted to give myself the best shot that I could. So I commenced to say, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. And I laid down and I let them take care of me. And it's been absolutely amazing to me how my body has recovered so quickly. The operation was November 15th, and I was back on stage December 28th. So that's just,
I saw you just before the operation. 'cause
You
it was
did.
late-ish October.
Yes, at the Habitat for Humanity
the
event.
big house party,
Yeah, it's always fun when you're around. I've noticed that.
I think it's the other way around, Leah. It's when something's always flying is around. We're having some fun.
Yeah.
Stephen, I know how bands are. They're like family. And you've all been together for a long time.
Yeah, Leah's been with us. Leah and Dan are the newest members, I think 4 years now.
Yeah.
3 or 4 years.
So how does the diagnosis impact her family in the band?
Oh,
good question.
we were devastated right away.
Yeah.
We didn't know where we were going to go or how we were going to get there. And Leah's going to speak to what happened that way because she's got some things she wants to say.
I do, and I'm so grateful to be able to be here today to thank the people that stepped forward. There were 3 women in particular, 3 musicians, local musicians. They know of the band. We're all a community in Kitchener. I can't even believe the immense amount of love that came forward. So there were 3 people that came forward and said, let me take her place, let her get fixed, get healthy, take well, for me, it was taking the guilt off. That's essentially what happened. These 3 women stepped forward and took an immense amount of guilt off of me and just let me kind of flow through it. So is it okay if
Absolutely.
I'm going to drop some names
You
right
drop
now.
some names, Leah Friede.
I want to thank Dana Comer from Dana Kay and the Remedy. I want to thank Maria Jo from 5 Foot Nothing. And I want to say a special thank you to Annette, who didn't get to sing with us, from Counting Down the Hours. These women came forward and they released me from a lot of burden. And they helped Something's Always Flying not let any of our clients down. They kept the flow. We didn't skip a beat.
No, we canceled 1 show through this whole thing, and that to me was a win.
Yes, absolutely.
Big time.
Yeah.
Our clients were happy, and public's happy.
Yeah.
We're happy.
Yeah. It was an amazing thing, and this is the Kitchener community of musicians. It's an amazing ecosystem of love and compassion and talent, absolute talent.
I was thinking about that as you mentioned those folks who helped you continue the band go on, not let down those clients. I mentioned earlier how a band becomes like family, but it sounds, Leah, like the musical community here in the region is very much a family.
It's absolutely incredible. Yeah. I think of these gentlemen as the 5 brothers that I never knew I wanted. So I have them now. I love them each individually dearly. And just like I said, the community that surrounded us is absolutely incredible. So we're looking to pay it forward and pay it back, and have some events coming up that will, display the talent, the female rock talent in the community, most especially. I would love to shine a light on that as we go forward.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
She loves Jeff most of all.
Jeff, the guitarist, is my favorite out of all of my brothers.
You actually play
now.
favorites.
I do.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Everybody knows. I'll say it on stage.
All right.
It's not a secret.
Jeff is the favorite brother.
He's the quiet one.
Yeah.
Why am I not surprised that Stephen's not the favorite brother?
Well, he's the big brother, the band dad. He's the wrangler. He's the one that agitates and keeps us cool at the same time. He drives the bus.
You mentioned, Leah, at the outset that this journey for you was full of miracles and grace.
Absolutely.
What miracles?
The miracle that it was found.
Yeah.
Apparently this kind of cancer is... Well, I was speaking with somebody that had the same type of cancer on the weekend, and she said, this is a cancer that a 65, 70-year-old man should have, not young women, right? I'm going to be 55. And I thought, yeah, absolutely, that sounds true. But what I didn't say is I've also, smoked like a 100-year-old pirate. So it came for reasons. Never will a cigarette touch my lips again. I'm taking good care of myself, which is, it was a wake-up call. It was there. It was stage 3 when they found it. It might come back again. There's a 25% chance that it might come back again. It's not likely that it will, because of my determination, the grace, the miracles. the hand that's on my shoulder pushing me forward. I have things to do. When you're thinking about dying of cancer, you make some deals, right? So I made some deals, and I plan to follow through.
You made deals with yourself?
I made deals with myself. I made deals with higher power, right? And I know that I'm here for a reason, and I'm going to fulfill those promises and the reasons.
I didn't get a deal.
So, no, you didn't get a deal. No, you got your singer back.
That's not a bad exchange.
No, it's
not a bad exchange.
And when I said the gallbladder removal amplified my voice, I mean, Steve can speak to that. I've been singing. I don't even know how long that was there. I don't know how long the cancer was there, but I can remember leaving some gigs and then going up either behind the building or in the car, throwing up on the way home. And I didn't realize that was what it was. I thought it was nerves. I thought it was relief after the gig, but I was really very, very sick, and I didn't even realize it. So everybody, please, please, please go get your kidneys checked, no matter what age, no matter where you are in life. Have that done, because it was not detected until they saw it with a CT scan. Yeah.
But once they did, because I've heard so many stories like this, Leah, where you had to do so much advocacy on your own behalf.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fortunate enough to say that didn't happen. I want to bring that forward. I know there are horror stories out there. I spoke with a woman past weekend. She waited for 189 days before she actually got, that's 6 months, right? When you think you're going to die. I was in very, very quickly. They saw it. They said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want it out." And within weeks, I was in the hospital and they got it out. And I've healed at the speed of light. Yeah, so the nurses, the doctors, absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I have absolutely nothing to complain about.
Did you get all the care here at our cancer center?
No, I've Brantford. Brantford General Hospital and Juravinsky.
Juravinsky's an excellent one at Hamilton, McMaster, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a bit of a mind freak for me because I helped my father through brain cancer going there. I actually helped him with MAID. So he was assisted in death as he left the earth because it was inoperable.
Right.
So I had that playing on my mind. I also had the hope that, I'm young, I'm healthy, there's absolutely nothing else wrong with me. I'm feisty, I'm sassy, I'm a rock chick. So that some of that came into play, right? I'm like, no, you're not going to get me this way. This is not how I'm going out. I've got work to do. I've got songs to sing.
We're going to talk about that work and the deals that you made with yourself and higher powers as we continue on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. Leah Friday and Steve Ropp, members of Something's Always Flying, with us in studio. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. In studio this morning with Steve Ropp and Leah Friday, who are members of Something's Always Flying. Terrific cover band that you can book for your next event. They've been doing great work around the region for a long time, and Leah is just off, or I think probably still in the midst of a cancer journey, right?
Absolutely.
You mentioned, right, the 25% chance of the return, but you were never
25% chance of the return. I'm going through immunology infusions right now. I'm 2 out of 17, so I've got 15 more to go. And this is a drug that they're giving me to basically uncloak the cancer cells so that my body can fight them. It doesn't let them hide, right? So it basically strips them and then lets my body do its work.
Amazing.
Yeah,
incredible
it is amazing.
Stuff.
It's incredible.
So you mentioned earlier, Leah, the deals that you made, the reasons that you're still here.
Yeah.
What are they?
The reasons that I'm still here, I need to sing. I need to sing loud. I need to make sure that people are happy. I've always had that in my blood, but I want to do more. I want to be bigger. I want to make sure that people are understanding that life is a journey. What I like to say is life is juicy, and we get to suck all the nectar out of it that we can. And that's what I plan to do with music and making sure that the messages that I have for people are out there. So it's delving into a little bit of recording and writing some of my own songs and working with, whoever wants to come forward. bringing songs into Something's Always Flying, because it was a boy band before I came along, right? So I want to be able to bring in some really, really great female artists into the lineup and make sure that I shine a light on them. Mainly what I want to do is make sure that the work that I do outside of the band is to help people really vibrate high. Because I believe if you vibrate high, cancer doesn't have a chance, right? So we bring passion, we bring compassion and empathy and love. That's my message. Love. Spread the love.
Steve, how did this self-described rock chick break into your guys club anyway all those years ago?
It's funny, we did a Kijiji ad, and at that time we had our current singer, our old singer, our former singer, had left, and so we had a hole that had to be filled. And I was vetting, I think it was over 15 different singers. We had a few of them but when Leah, when we got to talk and got to see each other, there was an immediate connection.
Yeah, it was instant.
Yeah. There was no question. Mm-hmm. In fact, when she came in and auditioned, the band came to me and asked if we were auditioning for her. So it was pretty quick. It was unanimous. There wasn't anybody who said, I don't think this is going to work. It just didn't work that way at all. It was very easy.
They expected a diva, but that's not what they got. Lucky for them. Huh. Right, Steve?
Huh.
Next question, Mike.
How has this changed your perspective on what you do, on the way you live your life?
Yeah. Nutrition-wise, absolutely. Nutrition-wise, I lived for a very long time on cigarettes and stress and coffee, right? So I don't do that anymore. Exercising, making sure that I'm fit inside and out, making sure that, we say positive attitude, but it's very difficult to have a positive attitude with current events and the way that things are unfolding all around us. So that's where the higher power comes in. Always keeping a watch on my thoughts, capturing them in the moment, seizing them. And I like to say pinning them to the floor and watching them squirm until they dissipate, right? So, and I teach my clients that as well, how to really harness the anxiety of what they're experiencing. So that's what it is. It's more of what I was on a bigger, more bold, courageous scale. I have to be bold.
Explain clients.
So I'm a relationship expert, and I help people in relationship crisis. But mainly what I like to do is help people who know they love each other, but they're afraid that it's slipping away. I don't necessarily want to rescue the relationship. I want to be able to emblazon the relationship and the love that's there. So love relationships are being taxed right now, let's say, pardon the pun, right? So yeah, it's a very, very interesting profession, but it's high stress level. I'm taking in all of their negative energy and having to purge it out. So yeah.
Just before about 90 seconds before we wrap up, but any benefit shows planned to support Juravinski cancer research?
Yeah. Well, we're looking to see how we can, in the future, attach ourselves to some very good charities. But I'll let Steve talk about what we have coming up.
Well, we've always been a band that likes to give back. We try to do 1 to 3 charity gigs. I hate calling them charity gigs. I just like to say we're giving back. But we try to do up to 3 a year. Some people take us up on us. Some people think that it's a scam. Some people just don't understand how real it is. So if you're out there and you need somebody, let me know.
Yeah.
We do have a gig coming up with Fire in the Valley and Dana Kay on April 26th. We're going to be at the Waterloo Naval Association. You can go on our website. You can get it on Facebook. You can take a look at it. That is a big show for us. It's not a benefit show, but it is a big show for us. But yeah, that's the big one coming up. We have all kinds of little ones in between, but yeah.
Something's Always Flying is the band. Leah is the cancer survivor, and her journey continues. Thanks for sharing the story with us today.
Mike. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Always good to see you, Steve.
Always good to see you.
Stephen Rupp and Leah Friday with Something's Always Flying here on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. If you were here looking for or listening for Ask the Chief with Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell and Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, who heads up our Traffic Services Unit, it was not here today. Schedules just did not align. So instead of the first Tuesday of the month, which is when Ask the Chief airs, first Tuesday of every month between 11 and noon, except this Tuesday, because those schedules just wouldn't align. So we will have the Chief and the Staff Sergeant on next Tuesday morning between 10 and 11. Just put a little pin in that. Make a note in your calendar. Set an alarm so that you're here to have your policing questions answered. But we couldn't make it work today. We will do it next Tuesday on the show. I promise. Something we do every day on the show is open up space so that we can hear from you. It's something we call the Talkback Hour. It gives you an opportunity to share thoughts on an issue that we discussed on the show today, something else that's going on in your little corner of the world that you want to share with the rest of us. You're welcome to do that. Your Talkback Hour begins. Phone lines open to you right after this update from the 570 News Center. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
It is your daily Talkback Hour, noon until 1. We open the phone lines so we can hear from you. It can be connected to a conversation we had on the show at some point today. I'll try to do better today at remembering all of the conversations, okay? I was so caught up in tariff talk yesterday when lovely Christine called from Guelph. Love our Guelph listeners. To bring up something music related. I couldn't even remember the hour before when we did This Week in Music History. So I'm going to do better. I got my list in front of me of all of the things that we discussed today. Or it could be something completely different. If it matters to you, it matters to us. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. I just want to take a brief moment, and because this is a nit I got to pick. But, so Matt's story about the hot mic moment with Ontario Conservative leader Doug Ford saying that he was glad that Donald Trump won, and then, used an expletive about getting knifed in the back with the tariffs that have come out since, et cetera, et cetera. But now the opposition parties are jumping on Doug Ford. Why would he want Donald Trump to win? Well, maybe Doug Ford is like tens of millions of Americans who did not see themselves reflected in Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. Maybe that's just the reason for it. And I'm not in any way defending Donald Trump, who is obviously morally bankrupt. There are a multitude of problems with this man. But maybe he is more reflective of Americans than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were. And maybe they were a little too righteous. I don't know. But I'm a little bit tired and a lot frustrated with this. How could you possibly vote for that when you're not looking at your own house and asking yourself the honest question, why didn't people vote for me? Maybe. And the political class, pardon my French, had better damn well listen. Not enough people see themselves in you. And that's part of the problem here. So I don't know. Why is Doug Ford's U.S. presidential preference a factor in our provincial election campaign? Again, I'll just say maybe, like tens of millions of Americans, Doug Ford sees more of himself reflected in Donald Trump than in Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. That's all. And maybe that tells you something about Doug Ford. I don't know. But man, oh man, if the side that didn't win doesn't start doing some soul searching and asking why they didn't win instead of criticizing the person who did win and the people who voted for the person that did win, we're never going to get out of this mess. Look at your own house. Honestly, do you reflect the average American or Canadian citizen or Ontarian or Waterloo Regionite? Do we see ourselves in you? I don't know. Anyway, that's it. I had to pick that nit. Joe, start us off on the Talkback Hour.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Long time no talk.
It's been a bit.
So I am the Liberal candidate in Kitchener-Conestoga. I'm so glad you opened up with look at yourself and do you reflect the people that you're supporting? And I honestly can truly say I do. I have never been served with a silver spoon my whole life. I lived in social housing. I went to the food banks, and I can honestly say that the current sitting MPP for us, Mike Harris Jr., has never had to deal with that. So I know what it's like to struggle. But I wanted to make a comment on your earlier person that called in to talk about Harris and trying to get into his office. I needed provincial help during the last 7 years, and I contacted his office just like that last listener. And it's like Fort Knox trying to get in there. If you can get somebody to respond back to you, I had to go to another MPP to get help. His office was not helpful or not approachable at all. You couldn't get a hold of him. And if and when I get elected as the MPP, that will not be anything. It will be a run like a business that if you call, we answer by the end of the business day. It is unrealistic to have an office like that when you are supposed to represent the people that are calling you to get the help that they need. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents on that side.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate hearing from you, and I wish you luck in the campaign. Interestingly, because I get the updates while I'm away, Mike Harris Jr. showed up on this show last week. I wasn't here, but I saw him on the list of guests for a particular day. So I don't know. He was here, like physically in the studio, at least at one point last week. John, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, and how are you doing this fine day?
Well, I'm well, Judge John. How are you, sir? That's an old name.
Quite well, thank you.
Good.
Much. You may congratulate me. Today is my birthday.
Happy birthday, my good sir.
Thank you very much. I won't say how old I am, but I'm not as young as I used to be, and I told my friends I don't really feel this age, but then I've never been this age before. So. Anyway, yes, this peculiar disaster with our good friend, the Great Pumpkin from down south, Orange Man. But what I do want to do is give a shout-out to Doug Ford, because whatever else you might think of him, and whether you're Conservative or NDP or whatever, while everybody else was talking, he was doing. And as far as I'm concerned, he deserves congratulations for that. He wasn't just a windbag. He was taking action.
All right, John, appreciate that call and that sentiment. When it comes to how old one is, I, for whatever reason, always recall a line from A Miracle on 34th Street. I'm as old as my hair, but not quite as old as my teeth. Or a little older than, I'm as old as my hair, but older than my teeth. Because your teeth come in later, right? That's how it goes. Something like that. I don't know why this is on my mind. I'm getting crankier as the day goes on. It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. You call us, we answer. Unlike some elected representatives, apparently. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Talkback Hour is your chance to get things off your chest and onto the air. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Zoltan, good afternoon.
Mike, it's so good to hear your voice again.
Thank you, sir.
Melancholic as it is. First of all, I think a lot of people would agree that Trudeau has no idea what the average Canadian wants, desires or needs.
Could not agree more.
Now we have something building. Nobody has mentioned it yet. An oligarchy. Trudeau and all his multi-billionaire friends who will make America great. Again, for who? Not for the average American, but for themselves who want more damn money. Think on it and maybe comment on it sometime. What do you think of it?
Thanks, Zoltan. Listen, my friends and I have long had a little phrase that we enjoy, TRGR, we just say to one another, for the rich get richer. And it does feel that way. And I said this a couple of weeks ago. I think it was before I went off on my hockey journey. But listen, we're all seeing that widening gap between the wealthiest and the least wealthy, right? And I'm not saying in my lifetime, I don't even know if I'm saying in 100 years. But at some point, I guess I'm getting a little apocalyptic here and thinking of a Hollywood movie of some sort. But at some point, I can honestly envision some sort of revolution, because he can only keep the people who are down for so long before they start striking back. And we're creating such a disparity in wealth when there is abundance, certainly in North America. I can't imagine that there wouldn't at some point, when I haven't the foggiest. I don't know what the tipping point is, but we certainly appear to be moving in that direction. Grant, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. I was kind of leaning towards this in the elections, but I'm not going to do it.
You're not going to do what?
I'm not going to help them out. They don't want.
Oh, you don't want to volunteer for an election, okay?
And they don't care about me at all. I had a discussion with the person that's running in our riding. Her initials are J and C. You probably know this person. And I explained to her several weeks ago my conversation that I left with the Liberal Party about food hamper and that stuff, and she acted like she really gave a darn about me. They had the Liberal leaders in our area had an event, and I had asked there was going to be food. All right, could you bring some food from this event? Because I'm pretty sure you'll have leftovers.
I got you. So you were hoping that after they had their event, they could bring some leftovers to you because you are food insecure. This is something we've heard from Grant before. And food security is something we talked about, or insecurity as well, on the show yesterday with Kim Wilhelm from the Food Bank of Waterloo Region. And she gave us some ideas around how we can inform our vote when we get a chance to go to the ballot box at the end of this month around issues of food security. Francis, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'll try to make it quick. I have a few comments to make. First, Doug is the right one to bargain with Trump, but calling an early election, they may fight him you know where. Secondly, we need to get rid of the tariffs between the provinces. And lastly, but most important, what is Trump going to do so we don't put tariffs on the U.S. in a month from now? Like, i.e., keep the guns out of Canada.
Francis, great question. I think that's a fair ask in all of this because it doesn't just go one way with that border, does it? Really good point brought up by you. Alex, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Do you remember our short little conversation yesterday?
I do.
What a difference a day makes, my friend.
Sorry?
What a difference a day makes. You were trying to make some funny points about a guy like me would never back down, and I can't believe a guy like me would never back down. I think it was literally 3 hours later that Trudeau capitulated.
But he didn't, though. All he did was re-announce or remind Donald Trump what we were already doing. There is an extra $200 million or so in there. I'll grant you that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you involved in that conversation?
In which conversation?
Between the Trump administration and...
Well, you tell me what was different yesterday than what was announced a month ago.
Well, let's see. 10,000 people to the border. That wasn't said before. That's a lot of people.
First of all, I'm pretty sure that was from the Mexican side, but whatever.
Also Canada as well.
Okay, but Alex,
Man, I work for a living, and I'm more up in the news than you.
Again, it was a re-announcement. Like politicians are so good at doing. I think somebody of your intellect would understand a re-announcement. All it was a reminder of what was already promised, the $1 billion.
They had announced the 10,000 Border Patrol
Again,
and helicopters. They had announced that before, really.
Yes, they did. They absolutely did. And drones and everything. Yes.
And they said 10,000 troops.
Again, check Mexico, Alex.
Yes, well, Trudeau said the same thing, 10,000.
Oh, so you were in on the phone call now?
No, that's what they said.
Who said?
The Trudeau government said.
Okay. Alex, listen, it was the same announcement with a little bit more money, a fentanyl czar. Yes, like I said, $150 to $200 million on top of the $1 billion, but no more, generally speaking, than had been promised originally. And to Francis's point, when do we ask for a change in direction the other way? How about all those guns that are coming across the border, Mr. Trump? It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just so we're all clear, and nobody can accuse anyone else of revisionist history, the original announcement from December the 17th by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, $1.3 billion additional dollars to secure the Canada-U.S. border. This would be in response to illegal migrants and illegal drugs, especially fentanyl. The RCMP would be outfitted with helicopters, drones, mobile surveillance towers, and a new joint strike force would be created to go after organized crime. December the 17th. What did Justin Trudeau do yesterday? I guess he put a number to all of that frontline personnel at 10,000 bodies, but it was announced back in December. And yes, he talked about the creation of this task force because nothing strikes fear into the heart of organized crime more than the creation of a task force. It was a re-announcement. You can spin it something differently if you want to, but back on December the 17th, that was the reporting. So I don't know where you get the idea that anybody did anything different yesterday. I guess, though, it allows President Trump to come out flexing his muscle and saying, see, I threatened them with tariffs and they did it. It was actually done on December the 17th. Tom, good afternoon. You're on the Talkback Hour.
Good afternoon, Mike. I think there's also a clarification here that the U.S. borders are either somehow failed to relay that stuff to Mr. Trump, or it was delayed somehow, and then between the 8 o'clock morning meeting and the 3 o'clock afternoon meeting, that was sort of put in there as well. But anyhow, I don't know why Mr. Ford here now all of a sudden, why would you walk back on some things which I think are somewhat different? Why all of a sudden we're putting the booze back on the shelves and the Starlink deal is back in play again? You know, in my point of view, and I may be wrong, but I do not believe the U.S. and Donald Trump have earned anything of the benefit they've done here. So why are we all saying, like, hey, the border, if the issue is the border, that's fine. We have a 30-day reprieve. We will look after that part of the border. As far as the American booze and the Starlink deal and some other things, that is still in play. Now, I could be wrong, maybe, but that's how I would play this, because to me now, we're going to be playing this game back and forth again, because there is no guarantee. There's nothing else coming after this 30-day reprieve.
Tom, I hear where you're coming from. I do not think you're wrong on this. What we have to remember here is we are basically working at the whimsy of the most powerful man on the planet, who is in the Oval Office in the United States. We'll continue our Talkback Hour right after this update from the 570 News Center. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is an interesting world, and that interesting world makes for a busy Talkback Hour. Let's get right back to the phones we went from one Tom before the update to another. Good afternoon, Tom.
Yeah, hi, Mike. I was wondering if you can find out. We just had 3 helicopters run by so low, it was shaking the whole Stanley Park area. I don't know what they're doing, but
no, Tom. They heard Alex on the radio before, and they thought they better get to the border quick to satisfy Alex. I think, yeah.
Okay,
No, I'll check.
Okay, I think we can put in NATO. We can put everybody on the border. That's not what Trump wants. It doesn't matter. Nothing's going to change. I told you yesterday, and none of these people are addressing this. He wants to destroy the Canadian economy. Pure and simple.
All right, Tom. Economic warfare it is. Kyle, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I would like to talk about the Brantford bullying that you had earlier today on the hockey thing.
Sure.
It's pretty disgusting, especially because we hear about it at all levels of hockey. It doesn't matter if it's house league, junior hockey, NHL. You hear these stories like that come all the time. And the one caller that you had that called in and said, maybe you should give these guys a suspension. It sounds harsh, but when you say you saw the text messages and I read the article when I saw it online, it's not a bad idea. Hockey's a privilege. It's not a right. And these kids, you're developing and learning, and maybe the parents should also step up and take some responsibility because they're pretty young, I think. I don't know how old they are, but I think they're under the age of 12 or however. It doesn't matter how old they are. Bullying should never happen in sports, and it needs to be addressed, and harsher penalties need to happen because, like I said, this isn't the first time we're going to hear about it. I'm sure it's not going to be the last, and something needs to change in society for that. Thanks there, Mike.
All right, Kyle, appreciate the call. This was an under 15, a U15 team. And when we had our guest on from the Warlords Hockey Academy in Oxford County, which kind of came to the rescue in all of this, Tavin Rollins was the player who was bullied to an extreme. And the Warlords have offered him a place to play, and he's been welcomed there, which is great. And our guest from the Warlords did talk about the prevalence of bullying, which sounded like it's actually quite prevalent. And the Warlords, as an organization, deal with it on a case-by-case basis and make sure it's taken care of. But the fact that it is so prevalent concerns me a little bit. To Kyle's point, in what happened here in Brantford, this just goes way beyond the pale. And the bullying, I mean, it involved a team chat. Like, this was the young man's teammates who were bullying him to such an extreme level. And I think Brantford minor hockey, I don't even know where to begin cleaning out the rot in there, because they are just basically washing their hands of it and saying it's up to a third party. According to the governing body, the Ontario Hockey Federation, cases like this are to be referred to this governing body, and then they don't do anything about it. Well, when you see, and it's obvious to anyone who followed the story because the screenshots of the text messages are there. When you see bullying at this level, you just disband the team. Like, there's no hurry up and wait for the third party agency to do its work here. There is no way these kids should still be on the ice. There's not anybody that would. Anyway, it gets me really frustrated. I'm with Kyle in that regard. There needs to be swift punishment meted out here, and allowing some third party, which takes over 100 days on average to get to a case, while this poor kid is finding refuge in a neighboring hockey association. It just, the fact that these kids that did this bullying are still on the ice playing is just the blackest of black marks on the Brantford Minor Hockey Association. Bill, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Hi, Mike.
Hello, Bill.
Yeah, just a question, or not a question, comment about the anthems. I don't particularly agree with booing, even though I understand, but they're not all dicks down there. Anyways, I'm just going to turn my back at the Ranger games. I sit in the third row just to the left of the Rangers. So look for me. I'll give you a wave at the next game.
I don't think we have any American teams coming in anymore. I think.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to wait.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. And I've also figured out what I'm going to do with my $200 from Doug Ford.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
I'm going to buy 200 beers.
You can't buy a buck of beer, but I like your thinking.
Anyways, thank you.
All right, Bill, appreciate it. Just going back to that anthem booing, and I received an email about that this morning. Again, I'd have to check. I think maybe Flint comes in one more time. Forgive me for not remembering. I don't think so. I think we're done with the American teams. But somebody had sent an email and asked about those school choirs that sing at Kitchener Rangers games. And what's going to happen if they're singing the Star-Spangled Banner and the boos are raining down? How are they going to feel? I don't think it's going to spread that far. I think it was a moment, and the moment has passed. But I will just say again, if you boo the other country's anthem, you're a jackwagon. Like, you're just being a jerk. And Canadians are not jerks, right? Our reputation is for being polite and courteous, not rude and obnoxious. So stop it. Just stop it. You're not solving anything. Okay? Okay. Elias, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, my friend. How are you?
It has been a while since I talked to you.
Yes, it has been.
It was last year, actually. Not that long. It was in December before the holidays. So how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to talk. I heard this morning, like, Doug Ford, he said that I am happy that Donald Trump win.
Yes, Doug Ford was happy that Donald Trump won.
I don't know why he is so happy, because you remember one time Kathleen Wynne, the Premier of Ontario, once she said Doug Ford is the same as Trump.
Yes, we tend to make comparisons like that.
Yeah, she did it, and I wonder why she said that, because today he showed his real face that he likes Trump.
Does that change your opinion of Doug Ford?
Yes.
It does,
yes.
eh? Yeah.
Because now we don't need tariff, we don't need election. Now we are spending $190 million on election that we don't need. That money could have gone to the health system.
I agree with that, Elias, and it's nice to hear from you again on the show. It's funny, we're up to $190 million. I think that was the number that Mike Schreiner used when he was on yesterday, too. The first number was $160 million on this unnecessary election, so it's getting more expensive very quickly. That's about a 20% increase from when we started. However, the other thing I find interesting is unnecessary, and I'll grant you, Doug Ford needed no stronger a mandate than he already had to fight the tariffs, but unnecessary tariff fighting election. And then every opposition party yesterday had their tariff fighting plan. So I don't know what is the election about anyway. It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. And we'll get right back to the phones on this busy Talkback Hour this afternoon. Ibrahim, good afternoon.
Hello, hi, good afternoon, Mike. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. About the startup thing. Yeah, just definitely, Mike, we were humiliated and disrespected, of course, what happened to us. Even I was checking that Fontenot, the thing is, they said 0.2, the second line.
Sorry, I lost you, Ibrahim.
Yeah. I'm saying that 0.2%, the fentanyl drug, they say, to United States, even entering from Canada. You know that.
Yes, it's a very small number, but the number, Ibrahim, the number is increasing though. That is true too. It's a very small amount compared to Mexico for sure, but it is increasing.
Yes, Mike, but combined with Mexico, 96.4.
I understand, but it's still coming, and the number is increasing. So why don't we just get on top of it?
Many people say that is not the reason they are just doing, 25%. So anyway, we should blame ourselves. Anyway, the past prime minister, they didn't plan for long run for the country, securing different customers. You can't rely on 80% of your business doing with one country.
I think we should diversify. You're right. Yes.
And also military. Country like ours, Mike. They, massive resources.
there's so many other things we have. We should have military capable to protect us. We have the meaning of financial. We have the meaning of the nuclear. Even we can defend ourselves. I hope this is wake up for our politician to plan for long future for the country. The last thing, Doug Ford was saying, doing a good job. He's not doing a good job. He's screwing up every time he goes to United States media, crying like baby.
No, he's doing a good job. I'm going to disagree with you there. He's doing a very good job of speaking for Canada.
What do you mean a good job, Mike? What do you mean a good job?
I'm telling you, when you just said U.S. media, Doug Ford is doing a great job on U.S. media. A great job.
But this is federal job anyway, most of the time. What he's doing, blaming even, we are not like China and Mexico. Why do you have to say that? We should increase, even open new pages with China to do our business. China is big market, Mike. It's second largest, and now the first will be in the world. In African continent, in Middle East, China is the number one doing business now. We should be with the China more, diversify our things.
I got you. You want diversification? I'm with you on. You want it to be focused on China? Okay. I just want it to be diversified. I think that's an excellent point. And I will just say again, on U.S. TV, I'm not saying across the board, Doug Ford has done a great job. But in terms of his messaging to the U.S. audience through U.S. television networks, he's been doing a great job, in my opinion. Greg, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. 3 quick questions. They might be pretty basic, but again, me not being the major political kind of guy. Last I heard, it wasn't a dictatorship in the U.S., and all we're hearing is Donald Trump's deciding this. Is there not another group of people that's got to be on board with him for this to be?
No, he's got
happening?
Control of both sides of the House there, so it's Republican rule all the way. So
the what? Like whoever is there, like is brainwashed or afraid to say, hey, like this is kind of stupid, but I'm not going to lose my position by voicing it. I'll just shut up. Like what really is going on? That's kind of what I was wondering. Like, how can he on his own be declaring so much and deciding this and changing his mind here?
Yeah, the Republicans have complete control right now of the U.S. government.
Okay, all right. And then next, like when he says about, Canada, here, spend this much, whatever, on the U.S. border. Well, it should not be the other way around. Like, if things are getting in there, how about increase U.S. security at the border? That would be the problem of letting them in. Has anyone ever looked at it that way? Yes?
Well, no. There is absolutely, and I mentioned this earlier, there is a problem of the southerly flow from Canada into the U.S. on both the migrant front and the fentanyl front. Compared to Mexico, it's a proverbial drop in the bucket, but it still is an issue, and it's an increasing issue. By the numbers, there's an increase. So I would, though, say the other way around, if you start stopping, but if you stop the flow of guns across the border into Canada, we would love you for it. Like, I would love to see something like that.
True, but I'm thinking even on a dumb down. Say I go to a Sabres game. All right, Canada, okay, fine, let me out. That's no problem. They don't have anything. It's the U.S. that's got to then screen me, and if I get in as a criminal, whatever, it's the U.S. that is sort of.
Well, yeah, but Greg, these they're not using like regular border. They're not going across the Peace Bridge, my friend.
Okay, well,
this is illegal activity we're working on here.
Okay, it just sounds like the U.S. should have the last, line of defense against all this stuff, and then that's who's got to shape up, not Canada. But
gotcha.
Again, that's just sort of the way some people have been talking about it. And then I guess 4 years from now, when somebody hopefully normal gets in there again, can all this just be undone? Whatever ends up happening? Is it that simple?
I've wondered the same thing, and I suppose it could be, but I don't have a crystal ball.
Like, who is benefiting? Like, I haven't heard yet of who's benefiting. Like, it seems like everybody's taking a shot if this stuff goes through. Like, who is benefiting?
Time will tell, Greg. Time will tell.
Okay. All right, good enough. Take care.
Thanks for the call. I think right now it's advantage Donald Trump because he seems to be the one flexing the muscle and having people bend their knee before him. It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show. And that's good for the Donald Trump brand, right? This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Couple minutes away from 1, your update in the 570 News Center. And then Now You Know with Rob Snow takes you through until 3. We continue Talkback. Toll free, Jay. Good afternoon.
Well, we need to discuss the most important topic. What are your plans for Sunday night for dinner?
Chicken wings.
Only?
Nachos.
Oh, yes. Well, what about the Philly cheesesteak sandwich?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So wings, what flavor?
It's salt and pepper.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
Go Kansas.
Go Kansas City. Toll-free Jay is pulling for the Chiefs to do something unprecedented in the National Football League. He's always got the most important things on his mind. Thank you, Jason, for the email to Mike at 570news.com, reminding me that I have been in dereliction of duty here. I've been thinking about this for weeks, and I haven't updated you. Jason's email says, if you could mention, my girlfriend is too afraid to call in, but she'd like to know if you can touch your toes yet. If you could mention that on the air so I can embarrass her, that would be fantastic. First of all, Jason, your girlfriend, I'm hurt that she's too afraid to call in. I know, I'm a bit grumpy, aren't I? I get it. I don't blame her one bit. But I've been meaning to update you on this because we talked about it at the beginning of the year, New Year's resolutions, little things. And I have been, look, I'm a flawed human, like I think you are too. And have I been stretching religiously every single day for multiple minutes a day? No. But am I stretching more this year than I was last year? Absolutely yes. Can I touch my toes yet? Not even close. Not even close. I'm barely past my knees. I don't think you understand fully how tight my muscles are. I'm uptight generally. My muscles are even more uptight than I am personally. I've been meaning to put together a video so I can share it on social so you can keep up with my progress. I'm working at it, but I am nowhere near touching my toes. I'll do a better job of getting an update out there other than just talking about it. I'll do a video and I'll show you how bad it is, how far away from my toes I am. Gotta run. Rob Snow with Now You Know is coming up. My name is Mike Farwell. Hey, 6 o'clock pregame from London tonight. Me and Fixie will be there. This is 570 News Radio.